All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live at 5 with Amanda Bulgarelli here and the PAC team. And we also have someone new joining us today. It's Barney. And Barney, I'm in North Carolina and you're in?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Beautiful out there.
Yeah, it's getting there.
We have a few Oreganders. What are you guys called?
Oregonians.
Oregonians.
Oregander.
I was a Michigander, and then I was a North Carolinian and Oregonian. Okay, so we're kind of similar there. Well, welcome. We are going to explore today importance of diagnosis and specifically the trickiness of Lewy body. It's one of those lesser known but becoming more and more aware in our world of dementia. So why is diagnosis so tricky? So this is a exploratory piece that Teepa often talks about, and the hardest part about diagnosing dementia is that it's a series of symptoms and it's a condition, not a specific disease that you can test my blood, treat me, and figure out, is this what I've got? Shoot, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So not only are many abilities affected throughout my whole body, and the type of dementia might determine which abilities are affected and how quickly it might be determined by my age, my background, my health, my other health conditions. And it's variable. It can be moment to moment, morning to night, activity to activity. So this thing called dementia is just not simple. And then even if we can figure out, we can determine, okay, we think this might look like a dementia, the symptoms point to a dementia, it could be instead a delirium, a depression, and or a dementia. Is it just dementia? Is it dementia plus something else? Is it two dementias playing together? Matters of the mind can become really overwhelming. So what are we looking for each D, delirium, depression, or dementia? We look at a lot of different factors. And one of those key factors is how quickly did this come on? How long have you noticed this? Is this a historic practice, behavior, something that's always been with you? Or is this something new that you're just now noticing? Has it been a gradual change or a quick change? And that can help us determine some of these first questions. Delirium first. First, let's look, is this a possible delirium? Did I just started taking a new medication? Do I possibly have an infection? Is there something that's just popped up that I've never really noticed before and it's been a sudden onset? A lot of delirium, reasons for delirium can be treated and some might be dangerous or deadly. So really important not to lump that in with possible changes, gradual changes that might be due to a dementia. Then we have dementia and depression. Sometimes very closely intertwined, sometimes I can separate those two things out. So then I finally think, it looks like a dementia. I think it's a dementia. And then those of you that have been with us before, when you look at the umbrella of dementia, we now know there's over 120 different types, forms, causes of this thing called dementia under the umbrella. So, wow, how many of you are already feeling a little bit overwhelmed with this process, especially when 50% of people are aware that changes are happening to them and 50% are unaware. So we're looking for guidance. We go to our primary care physician. We ask for help. We ask for somebody to tell us what to do or tell us what this thing is. And unfortunately, it's just not that simple. So here we have our friend, our visitor today, Barney Nelson. And Barney, do you want to share a little bit about, this is the beginning of his story, and we'll be sure to get this story out, possibly post it on Facebook later this evening as a full story so you can read the whole thing, the whole process. But Barney, what was it like for you when you decided, I'm going to go in and check out this thing that I'm experiencing that seems like brain change? I'm not sure what it is, but I think something's going on here.
Well, I'd been having REM sleep disorder for many, many years, about 10 years. So I had also, though, started to notice that my cognitive capabilities were declining at a rate that didn't seem quite right. So I went in and saw my neurologist that I've been working with regarding my REM sleep disorder, and she gave me the standard MMSE test, and then told me to come back in about 3 months. The wait and see strategy is what I call it. And when I went back again, she gave me the MMSE again, and there was some significant decline in certain areas. Also, I started having some hallucinations, hypnopompic at night. When I would be in the middle of waking up, I would start to see things, usually as a result of light coming in through a window of some sort or another and casting shadows on the ceiling or the wall. My brain would turn those into animals or something more sinister than that, as it turned out.
And so you were aware that these changes were, you knew something wasn't quite right. My reality isn't fitting with everybody else's, but what the heck is going on?
Yeah. Well, I also started doing some research on my own on the internet. As you guys know, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of good websites.
Yeah.
And I started looking at symptoms, and I knew that my tremors that I had for quite some time, most of my life, I'd had just a benign tremor, was starting to increase. The cognitive issues, particularly multitasking, were starting to, get worse. I think one of the game changers also, though, for sure, was the hallucinations.
That was a pretty surprising new piece that was sort of, this is different. Something different is happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the core characteristics of Lewy body, as it turns out, it was pretty easy for me to just kind of narrow it down to Lewy body relatively quickly, because the 4 core characteristics I was experiencing. Unlike so many other people that may have vascular and Alzheimer's dementia at the same time, or some combination or something different, where it's not quite so easy to diagnose. For me, just doing some research of my own and then talking to my doctor, who began to also suspect that I might have Lewy body because of the REM sleep disorder that had been there for a long time, the tremors, the cognitive issues, and then the hallucinations. Those are the 4 core characteristics of Lewy body, as it turns out.
Yeah, and recently, over the last really just maybe 7 to 8 years, we're getting to know a lot more about Lewy body, and they're starting to create centers of excellence around the U.S. and the Lewy body LBDA.org that you showed here, really beneficial for that sort of list of symptoms. What do you even look for? Because it's often undiagnosed or misdiagnosed because of this hallucination piece, and because of many years of odd sleep patterns, sleep depth, or just REM issues. There's been a history, but it's not always tied together with cognitive changes or hallucinations. And so starting to be able to put the pieces together for yourself was really important, but you had to do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to keep digging for answers.
Yeah, somewhat. There is a lot of information out there. It's fairly straightforward. It wasn't difficult for me to find out a lot about this. And, in fact, one of the things I'll tell you is one of the theories that's now coming out is an increasing amount of belief that if you have longer term REM sleep disorder, many times you will end up with dementia of some sort. And a Lewy body dementia is the most likely candidate, of which there's 2 different types of Lewy body dementia, which we could get into, Amanda, if you'd like, or not.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll have you back on to dig deeper into those, because something else you mentioned is those tremors and Parkinson or Parkinsonian dementia, which is something that we haven't done a lot with, but Teepa does a lot on, and I know you're very knowledgeable in this area, and I think that this would be something that we could have you back, and maybe you can help us explore Lewy body a little bit deeper.
Sure, be happy to help.
So the piece that you create, you worked with your primary care doctor, but you needed a lot of recommendations. You had a good neurologist, but people should ask for a good neurologist if they don't have one. Someone who really understands dementias too would be really helpful. But even with all of the knowledge and the symptoms and the information on the internet, there was sort of a lacking need for you to be able to sort of track your own symptoms and share that knowledgeably with your doctor. So you created a couple of things that I wanted to share out, and these are Barney's personal creations based on what information you wanted to share with your doctor. So tell us a little bit about the benefit and the creation of these logs.
So the one on the right, the personal log of potential dementia symptoms, was actually my wife's idea when I started having more and more cognitive episodes and hallucinations. She said, you really ought to keep a log about this, and that might really help. So I created this document here as a really, very simple document. So you could date stamp it and then give a description as things come up of your symptoms that you're starting to see. Turns out the log that my wife had suggested I do, I sent into the Aging and Alzheimer's Center that I ended up going to with very specialized dementia-oriented type of doctor with an associate professor at Oregon Health Science University. And she actually told me that the log that I generated over about a 4 or 5 month period really helped her with the diagnosis. Hence,
Yeah, because a lot of these symptoms seem minuscule. They seem really small. They don't seem like they're really tracking a whole lot. But every time something is a little bit different than it used to be, every time you notice a hallucination of something, it can help you start to either pinpoint triggers or help you see a change to adapt for.
yeah, it's very true. It just ultimately, my doctor telling me it was very helpful for her in the diagnostic process is what I kind of jumped on. And as time went on, I talked to more people at the Alzheimer's Association, people that were struggling with Alzheimer's, conferences, PAC conferences, all that. One of the very common complaints was that, if not really just upsets, concerns, was the whole diagnostic process and what they had to go through to finally get a diagnosis. In some cases, many years. In a lot of cases, a slew of different doctors.
Yeah.
I see it, and I'm sure you guys do too, as a really big problem statement, this whole diagnostic process. So that's the purpose of the document on the left side, the Dementia Screening and Diagnostic Aid. I was in a meeting recently with another organization, and a doctor was on talking about diagnosis. And I suggested something like what you're seeing on the left here. And he said, yeah, that would be a great screening tool. And I thought screening was a great way to put it. So that if people could fill this out, and doctors could have copies of this and even share this among themselves if they're working with the same person. This, by filling in the ones that on the left, are applicable, you put an X in the box that's applicable for the various symptoms. Then on the very right, there's an onset date column. Because, Lewy body is a great example. Depending on when the cognitive issues start versus the tremors, you're going to get a different diagnosis for which type of Lewy body you have. So the onset date becomes really important also.
Yeah.
So these are two just simple documents that could maybe help out with the diagnostic process. And to really start thinking about it, we might be able to envision and reimagine other kind of tools that we could use to help speed up the process, maybe move some things that are currently working in a serial fashion and have them work in a more parallel fashion. Again, trying to speed up the process, help people to get to the answers that they're looking for quicker.
Yeah, because what you mentioned in your story, like I said, we'll put that out so people can read it at a later date, but it took 8 months. And that was probably a low end estimate.
Yeah. Based on people I've talked to, yeah, that was that. And that's one of the reasons why I put the blog together, by the way, which you had, a couple of paragraphs up there earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Was I wanted to share with people, and talking to Shelley about this. Shelley thought, hey, it might make sense to do that. Share with people, the 8-month process that I went through.
Yeah.
And the things I kind of learned and the things I kind of experienced, and see if that would be helpful.
So what we'll do, because I bet there's a bunch of people out there who are looking for answers, who are feeling that feeling of something's not quite right, but my primary care said it's fine and just let it be, wait and see. And that method really doesn't sit well when you know there's something happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really hard. So obviously people out there can reach out to us at PAC and we'll get you connected. Make sure you mention that you want to talk to somebody who's a Lewy body specialist, which is Barney. But also we'll make sure we have a way for people to contact you directly, Barney, on our page for people living with dementia. So right now we've got that Lewy body website that we mentioned before is there. If you simply go to our For People Living with Dementia page under our resources, Teepa runs live webinars every month. Let's Talk, they're just an hour-long place for people living with dementia to get connected with her and with PAC, but also to sort of bring up some of these advocacy issues that exist out there. How do I take this diagnosis process into my own hands and speed it up? 3 years is too long if I'm living in misery, and that's not fair. And it also opens up, we have consultations, free 30-minute consultations for anybody, whether you're living with dementia or just have somebody in your life. But we'll make sure we put something on this page so that people can get in touch with you directly, Barney, and start to explore your story, your options, and your tools that you've created. Because if you were to leave us with something in this last little bit about diagnosis, what's sort of your one takeaway from this whole process?
Well, I think you mentioned something that's very important, which is being able to take control of the diagnostic process yourself, as opposed to being in the dark constantly and not getting clear direction. So that was part of the purpose of the blog I wrote, is to help people understand how you can, in some ways, you can take control of the diagnostic process personally. I think people will feel a lot better and less anxiety if in fact, they can do that.
Yeah. So feeling empowered to take control, and you are the one with the most knowledge about your symptoms and what you've got. And it just takes some digging sometimes to find that right set of 4 to 7 symptoms that fits your dementia, because there are tons of different dementias out there, and it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, that's the screening tool idea, which the doctor liked. And I also sent a copy to my own doctor at Oregon Health Science University, and she thought it would be extremely helpful for doctors also to have that tool they can hand out or look at, have somebody filled it out and they can look at it and they think it could speed the process up.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for putting so much time and energy in and sharing that time with the world to make it a little bit easier for people who are trying to figure out this journey of diagnosis. For those of you that are interested in jumping on board, like I said, I'll be getting Barney's information up on our resources page for people living with dementia. And we're here every day at 8 for Teepa, every weekday at 5 with our PAC team. And come join us. And Barney, hopefully we'll be able to have you back to talk a little bit more about those types of Lewy body, because that's super interesting.
Happy to help.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks PAC team for joining us.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to help us spread Teepa's positive approach message around the world. And don't forget to click the bell to get notified when new videos are posted.